Today I would like to share with you a simple concept that my grandmother taught me when I was a little girl. Almost any time when you walked into her home, she would be putting a cake in the oven or pulling cookies out of the oven. And I have so many fond memories of baking with her as a little girl, and even now as an adult, that I would like to share with you just how simple it actually is to bake a cake, so that by the end of this week you can actually create your own sweet memories with your family. So baking a cake is essentially a 5-step process, no matter what style of cake you would like to bake. Those 5 steps are preheating your oven, mixing your dry ingredients, mixing your wet ingredients, greasing your pan, and then baking for the correct amount of time. So today I'm going to go through and show you more details on each of those 5 steps, and I'm also going to show you a recipe just to reiterate again how simple it actually is to bake a cake. So step 1, preheating your oven. This is probably the simplest of the steps. You're going to select preheat on your oven, and then you're going to type in the appropriate temperature for your cake to bake at. This is typically 350 degrees. The reason we start with this is because we want your oven to have time to fully warm up before we put the cake into it. Step 2, mixing your dry ingredients. This is a very simple step as well, and this was actually my task when I was a little girl, so that can show you just how easy it actually is to do. You're going to start with all of your dry ingredients on the counter, along with your mixing bowl and measuring cups and measuring spoons. Next, you're going to actually measure the dry ingredients with measuring cups or spoons and dump them into your mixing bowl. Some basic dry ingredients that you could expect to see would be flour, sugar, salt, baking soda, or baking powder. You could even see things like cocoa if you're going to make a chocolate cake. Step 3 is mixing your wet ingredients together. This is very similar to step 2, but a little bit more tedious since you're dealing with liquid ingredients. Some liquid ingredients that you could see would be water, milk, vanilla extract, oil, butter, or eggs. So again, you're just going to take those wet ingredients, you're going to measure out the appropriate amounts with your measuring cups or measuring spoons, and you're going to actually add them into your mixing bowl with your dry ingredients. Once they're all in there, you're going to mix them together with a spoon or with beaters if you have access to those. The reason we start with your dry ingredients first and then go to your wet ingredients is because we want the baking soda or baking powder to be evenly dispersed throughout the cake. That way, as it bakes, it's going to rise evenly and not be lumpy. Step 4, greasing your pan. At this point, you get to decide what style of pan you would like to use. You can use anything from a sheet pan to a bundt cake pan, or even a circular pan if you're wanting to make a layered cake. Once you've selected what style of pan you would like to use, you're actually going to grease the pan. You can do this by 2 ways. You can either use a non-stick cooking spray, which you would spray evenly on the inside of the pan, or you could use a choice of oil or butter. If you use oil or butter, take a paper towel and dip it in the oil or butter and spread it evenly on the inside of your pan. The reason we do this is we don't want your cake to stick to the pan. The last thing we want to happen is having that perfect slice of cake and going to get it out of the pan and it crumbling or sticking to it or falling apart. So once you've got your pan greased, you're going to mix your add your ingredients that have been mixed together into your pan. Step 5 is actually baking for the correct amount of time. So once your ingredients are in the pan, you're going to set that pan on the middle rack of the oven that should be fully preheated. And then you're going to shut the oven and try really hard not to peek at it for the next 30 minutes to an hour while it bakes. Once the time has passed, you're actually going to take your oven mitts and get the cake out of the pan and set it onto the counter to let cool for just a little bit. And once the cake is cooled to the temperature that you would like, then you can actually try a slice of it. Something that I always use when baking is a recipe. Using a recipe makes things a lot simpler, and it also gives you kind of those little reminders of where you're at. That way you don't forget. So this is an example of a recipe. This goes over the same 5 simple steps that I just talked about. And it's also going to, like I said, keep you in place with where you're at, and you don't have that what do I do next moment. So in summary, if you follow those 5 simple steps, you should be able to create not only a cake that's delicious, but fond memories with your family. So don't forget, preheat your oven, mix your dry ingredients, mix your wet ingredients, grease your pan, and bake for the correct amount of time. If you follow this, you should be able to create a memory that will last even longer than the cake actually will. And don't forget, the most important part is eating it.